Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Northwest Barrie United Church. It is Sunday, June the 21st, the first official full day of summer and the end of a truly beautiful week of spring. So I hope you've been able to enjoy it. Today in Canada, it is Father's Day. So without any further ado, we're going to hear some Father's Day wishes from our youth group. Enjoy.
Father's Day, Dad. Thanks for everything you do for us. Not only do you help us all the time, but you also help out everyone at the hospital, and we can't begin to thank you for your service. I love you.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you so much. You're the best.
Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Thanks for everything you do for us and for the church. We love you.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Thanks for being an amazing dad and the greatest dad ever.
Happy Father's Day, Dad. Thanks for always being there for me. I love you so much.
Thank you for sharing that, and I'd like to wish all the dads and grandfathers and really anybody who's been a father figure a very happy Father's Day today. And I wanted to point out my tie. This was a gift from one of my kids, so proud to be able to wear this today on Father's Day as well. As always, we'd like to begin with celebrations and announcements, and I have a few to pass along. First of all, a very happy birthday to Hugh Cameron, who celebrated this past week. Also, a very happy birthday to Ashley Arnold, who turned 40. And Ashley, your dad gave you permission to say that you turned 40, so very happy birthday to you. Also, happy birthday to Ann Johnson, who is celebrating her birthday next week. I'd also like to extend anniversary wishes to Wayne and Hillary Nelson, who are celebrating who celebrated 22 years of marriage on Saturday. And also, I have a confession to make. I missed a very important anniversary a couple of weeks ago. So, happy anniversary to Jerry and Deb Vidito, who celebrated 39 years of marriage back on June the 5th. We have an announcement, and we're going to go, you know where we're going to go because we go there every week. Let's go out into the garden and get an update from Terry Topsoil and Dandelion Daniel.
Well, here we are again, another glorious day in the garden. Lots of beautiful, healthy plants and some color, and Terry's over there. Terry, wake up. This is wake up the garden, not put the garden to sleep. Folks, we are almost there. We are past the $9,000 mark, and Terry is furiously planting away when he's not napping. And we are going to make it. With a week to go, we are so close to reaching our $10,000 goal. So thank you to the many who have donated. If you still have the opportunity to contribute, please look for the information at the end of the service on how you may donate, and just include that line, wake up the garden. And we'll come back one more time next week to see where we finished and to look at all the beauty that is here. If you have the chance, walk by, cycle by, drive by, take a look at Charlie's garden and see what Terry's been up to. Thank you again.
Before we begin our service, we do have one more video to show you. Last Tuesday evening, we had 9 of our youth from the church come here for just a little party. And these are our youth who are graduating from grade 8 and grade 12. And of course, most of their ceremonies are canceled this year because of COVID-19. So we wanted to do something special to mark the day because we're extremely proud of them, and we wanted to wish them well on what their future is going to hold. So here's a little clip from our graduation party 2020. Well, if you become a Northwest, you know we have the most amazing youth in our church. And every year we have some of them graduate from grade 8 and then of course from grade 12. And we should all in our life be able to have that graduation to celebrate the amazing achievements that we've had. And this year, of course, none of that's able to happen because of COVID. So we thought we'd have a little fun and just invite our graduates from grade 8 and grade 12 to come to the church, and we're going to have a little party, we're going to have a little food, all socially distanced, and ask them a couple of questions, maybe have a couple of gifts at the end too. So we're just going to take a few minutes and celebrate our graduates, and we invite you to celebrate right along with us.
It definitely, between traveling and playing in K-Cup this year, it's always been a blast to travel with like the canoe club or going from BioVentures and getting to go to Iceland. It's always been an eventful time.
The soccer team, grade 9 I think it was, to like grade 11. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
My favorite memory would probably be almost my entire course of BioVentures. I loved traveling to Iceland, our backpacking trip, and our canoe trip, and all the people we were with.
Probably our music trips. We would go to Ontario music festivals in Sudbury and Ottawa and even Halifax, a bunch of different places, and they were really fun.
So 2 things that I loved about high school were probably the school events and the sports teams.
Was a great time with our youth. I'd like to say thanks to Sharon and Amanda for putting that video together. I also want to add just a couple more graduation celebrations. Chase McKenzie graduated this year from the University of Guelph with a degree in human kinetics. So congrats to Chase. And I also heard that from the same home, Shannon McGecky graduated grade 8 and Tate McGecky graduated from grade 12. So to Chase, Shannon, and Tate, congratulations. And if I missed anybody else out there and you graduated this year, please let me know. I'd be very happy to include that in our service next Sunday. Phew, we've covered a lot of ground already, but let's start our service with our call to worship. Come one, come all, to this celebration of faith, this celebration of life. As we share these moments of worship together, may we feel the Spirit move within us, inspiring us, encouraging us, comforting us, and calming our restless spirits with the promise of peace. Come, let us worship God. Our opening hymn is Dance with the Spirit, So sing, dance, enjoy.
Dance with the Spirit early in the morning, walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life born, and listen to the Spirit to show you the way. Move with the Spirit early in the morning, walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life born, and listen to the Spirit to show you the way. Sing with the Spirit early in the morning, walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life born, and listen to the Spirit to show you the way. Dance with the Spirit early in the morning, walk with the Spirit throughout the long day. Work and hope for the new life born, and listen to the Spirit to show you the way.
I invite you now to please join me in our prayer of approach. Worship is the way of openness. It is the opening of our senses, the opening of our minds. It is the opening of our hearts. God, open us to these moments ahead, for we long for the peace and comfort that worship can bring to us. And we seek the wisdom and encouragement that Scripture and story can reveal to us. Whatever stresses or worries this week, may we set them aside and focus on the rhythms of music and message. May it open something inside of us. And like the prodigal returning to his father, returning home, may this time bring us back to you, our source and our strength. Amen. Very excited today to have the Kinsey family offering our special music, so I know you're going to enjoy it, so please do.
Your love is amazing, steady and unchanging. Your love is a mountain firm beneath my feet. Your love is a mystery, how you gently lift me when I am surrounded. Your love carries me. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Your love is surprising, I can feel it rising, all the joy that's growing deep inside of me. Every time I see you, all your goodness shines through. I can feel this God song rising up in me. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Your love is amazing, steady and unchanging. Your love is a mountain firm beneath my feet. Your love is a mystery, how you gently lift me when I am surrounded. Your love carries me. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Your love makes me sing. Hallelujah,
This morning, I'm continuing with the series, A New Normal, and the story that I'm going to base my message on is a good one for Father's Day as well, and it's a story that if you've been coming to church, especially here at Northwest, I'm sure you're quite familiar with. It's called the story of the lost son, or the story of the prodigal son. And I'm going to begin by reading it, and I'm actually reading from a very modern translation of the Bible called The Message. Then Jesus said, "There was once a man who had 2 sons. The younger said to his father, 'Father, I want my share of my inheritance.' So the father divided the property between them. It wasn't long before the younger son packed his bags and left for a distant country. There, undisciplined and dissipated, he wasted everything he had. After he'd gone through all his money, there was a bad famine all through that country, and he began to feel it. He signed on with a citizen who assigned him to his fields to slop the pigs. He was so hungry he would have eaten the corn cobs in the pig slop, but no one would give him anything. That brought him to his senses. He said, 'All those farmhands working at my father's sit down to 3 meals a day, and here I am starving to death. I'm going back home. I'll say to my father, Father, I've sinned against God, I've sinned before you, I don't deserve to be called your son. Take me on as a hired hand.' He got right up and went to his father. When he was still a long way off, his father saw him. His heart pounding, he ran out, embraced him, and kissed him. The son started his speech. 'Father, I've sinned against God, I've sinned before you, I don't deserve to be called your son ever again.' But the father wasn't listening. He was calling to his servants. 'Quick, bring me a clean set of clothes and dress him. Put the family ring on his finger and sandals on his feet and set a feast for him. It's time for a party. We're going to have a wonderful time. My son is here, given up for dead and now alive, given up for lost and now he's found.' And they began to celebrate his return. All this time, the older son was out in the field. When the day's work was done, he came in. As he approached the house, he heard the music and dancing. Calling over one of the servants, he asked what was going on. The servant told him, 'Your brother came home. Your father has ordered a feast because he has him home safe and sound.' The older brother stalked off in an angry sulk and refused to join in. His father came out and tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't listen. The son said, 'Look, how many years I've stayed here serving you, never giving you one moment of grief or trouble. But have you ever thrown a party for me and my friends? Then this other son of yours who's thrown away all your money shows up, and you go all out with a feast.' His father said, 'Son, you don't understand. You're with me all the time, and everything that is mine is yours. But this is a wonderful time, and we have to celebrate. This brother of yours was dead, and he's alive. He was lost, and now he's found.' Amen." I would imagine there are few greater honors in life than to be the valedictorian to your graduating class, whether you're in grade 8 or grade 12 or university. What a thrill it must be on graduation day to be able to address your peers and share all your wisdom about life as everyone prepares to take that next step along the road. This week, as we shared that time with our graduates that we saw in the video, I spent a part of Monday watching Valedictory Speeches on YouTube to see if I could find some great tidbit of wisdom to share with them. There's some really good ones out there. From Admiral McCraven telling a graduating class that if they want to change the world, they have to begin by making their beds. To a high school student who, while he gave his speech, solved a Rubik's Cube puzzle. His point being that life is a puzzle and you have to constantly keep working at it. If you have some time on your hands, and who doesn't these days, go on YouTube and look up valedictorian speeches and you'll find some amazing ones. I never had the honor of being a valedictorian, but it's always been a dream of mine to give a valedictory speech. So guess what? Today, my dream is going to come true. For the next 15 minutes, I'm going to pour into your ears all my collective knowledge of 51 years of living on this planet. You, the class of 2020, will laugh, you will cry, some of you will wish you'd stayed in bed longer. I will inspire, perspire, try not to expire as I get you ready for the next part of your journey. Okay, let me take it down a notch. How's my hair? I don't want to set expectations that I could never possibly meet. But I was thinking when I was planning this sermon based on the story of the prodigal son, while at the same time planning for the graduation thing and watching these valedictorian speeches, is how much life wisdom there is in this story of the prodigal son. You know, if you've been around Northwest for a little while, you've heard many sermons on this story. In fact, I don't think there's a story in the Bible that I've spoken about more than the one that Jesus told about the Father forgiving his Son. And that's because, to me, there is no finer story that showcases the heart of our faith, of what it truly means to be Christian, of what it truly means to be a good, decent human being, than the story of the prodigal son. Robert Fulghum once famously wrote, "All I really needed to know I learned in kindergarten." Well, at the risk of a lawsuit, I'm going to tweak that a little and say, all I really needed to know, I learned from the prodigal son. So here's what I want to do. This will be part sermon and part graduation speech. I want to share with you 10 things that you need to know about life based on the prodigal son. And here's how it fits with this idea of the new normal. We are the graduating class of COVID-19. At least, let's hope we are. Let's hope we're not coming back for a fall semester, if you know what I mean. We've been through a lot. We're not there yet, but things are better. We can start to think about the future, maybe start to think about some things getting back to normal. But COVID-19 has given us all pause in our life to reflect on many things about our lives. So, as this is a time of personal reflection, I want to take a look at this story and its great lessons for life. There are 10. I'm going to move through them pretty quickly. So if you're ready, here we go. The life lessons from the prodigal son. Number 1, your grass may be greener than you think. The story of the prodigal son is based on the single premise that things are always better somewhere else. As far as we can tell from the story, the son had a lot going for him. A good home, a good dad, a good job, a good life. At least we assume he did. But it wasn't enough. There's got to be more to life, thought the son. The grass has to be greener somewhere else. And so off he went in the night with a bag full of money to see how green the grass really was, only to discover that it was no greener there than it was at home. That's definitely a premise we can all fall victim to. Some call it wanderlust, some call it itchy feet. This idea that things must be better somewhere else. Down the road, around the bend, over the next horizon. And don't get me wrong, we all have a right, even I dare say a responsibility, to explore and have adventures and really fully live our lives. But there's always a cost-benefit. Before we wander away, the question we should ask ourselves is, does my location need to change, or does something else need to change? I want to tell you one of my favorite stories, and I've told it before. I actually told it a few weeks ago doing something else. It's a little parable, I'll tell it very quickly, about a guy who was very dissatisfied with his life. He lived in this tiny, broken-down house he didn't really like. He was married, but he didn't particularly get along with his wife, and he had kids, and they were always driving him crazy, and he would go to work, and he didn't really like the people that he was working with. They never seemed to listen to his ideas. Very dissatisfied. One night he was sleeping, and suddenly he was awoken in the night by an angel. And the angel said to the man, "I can tell you're very unhappy. But did you know that there is a land you can go to where you will be happy all the time?" Guy said, "Great. Where is this place?" Angel said, "Simple. When you get up tomorrow, Start walking through the forest. You're going to get halfway there. You're going to find a little cottage. You can stop and stay there for the night. Get up the next morning and walk the second half. And when you come out of the forest, you will be in this new happy land. Guy says, this is amazing. But one thing to remember, said the angel, it's kind of confusing in the forest. So when you get to the cottage, before you go to bed, take your shoes off, point them in the direction you're walking so that you're going the right way the next day. Great. Guy wakes up the next morning. Off he goes on an adventure. Walks all day through the forest, gets to a little cottage, stops in the cottage for the night, takes his shoes off, puts them down, points him where he has to walk tomorrow, goes to sleep. That night the angel returns, takes the man's shoes, turns them around so they're pointing in the opposite direction. Guy gets up, puts on his shoes, and starts walking. Later that day, he comes to the forest, and there is the happy land. He's amazed because it looks like his old town, but so much cleaner and brighter. He finds a house just like his old house, but it seems to be in much better repair. There's a woman in the house, just like his wife that he left behind, but she seems so much nicer to him. And there were kids, just like his kids, but so much better. Later he went to work, and he was amazed. He got along with his colleagues. People listened to him. It was amazing. And the man lived happily ever after in his new happy town. Sometimes we think we need to change locations. Sometimes it's something else that we need to change. Secondly, don't shy away from tough conversations. The son was unhappy with his life, but rather than talk about it, he walked away from it. I wonder how much drama and trauma in this story could have been avoided if the prodigal son, instead of sneaking away, had just sat down with his dad and said, "Dad, I respect you, I care about your opinion, and I need your help. I'm not satisfied with my life here. I want more, I need more, I desire more." And that dad, who clearly was a very wise man and a compassionate man, may have had answers for his son or wisdom to share or advice to give, and they could have found a way for the son to stay while giving him some of the freedom and challenge that he needed to deepen his life experience. How many relationships in life are threatened? How many job prospects are lost? Or how many assumptions are made because we are afraid to have tough conversations with each other? We are afraid to be honest and vulnerable with each other. I've told many times before how close I came to not being a minister because of a failure once to have a tough conversation. In my first year of theology school, I was posted to a rural charge in PEI where I'd be a student internship for 4 months in the summer, or a student intern. I was scared to go. I was 23 at the time. I didn't know anybody out there. I'd never been in a ministry position before. I finally figured I couldn't handle it. I doubted my skills. Finally, I wrote a letter to the United Church of Canada resigning from that internship. It was late at night, so instead of mailing the letter, I decided to wait until the next morning. Next morning, I was awakened by the phone ringing. It was my supervising minister calling from PEI, just coincidentally, and she said how excited they were to have me there and how good a time I was going to have. And I got off the phone, and I decided to go. I never mailed that letter. I still keep it in the office as a reminder of that experience. I so appreciated her for having that conversation with me, but the point was, it should have been me reaching out, initiating that tough conversation instead of just sneaking away. Never be afraid to have those tough conversations, and never underestimate people's ability to have them with us. It's how we grow in our relationships. Thirdly, guess what? You're not perfect. I know that's hard for some of you to hear. The story of the prodigal son is a story about failure, but it's also a story about overcoming that. If there's one thing in my life I've learned, and I know you've learned it in your life too, is that you learn far more from failure than you ever learn from success. Success makes you feel good. Failure makes you feel real. Success gives you a pat on the back. Failure gives you a kick in the pants, which we all need from time to time. Success makes you feel high. Failure makes you go deep. Success gives you trophies. Failure gives you experiences and insight and wisdom. We are all going to fail again and again and again in life. It doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, where you live, how much money you make, how you live, you are going to fail. And it's going to feel awful. But your potential to learn and grow from it is amazing. Dennis Waitley said, "Failure should be our teacher, not our undertaker." Winston Churchill said, "Success consists of going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm." And Robert Kennedy, "Only those who dare to fail greatly will ever achieve greatly." The prodigal son teaches us that we are not perfect, that we will fail. But if we are open to learn from those imperfections, really, there's no such thing as failure. Which leads me briefly to point 4. Rock bottom is a great place to build a new foundation. The prodigal son hit rock bottom. Losing it all, the only job he could find was slopping out the pigs, living off the same food the pigs were eating. That is rock bottom. Did he stay there? No. He started to rebuild his life on that foundation. The wise person builds their house upon the rock, said Jesus. Sometimes that rock comes at the end of a big fall, but it's still sturdy enough to build again. As someone wisely said, you will never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice you have. Number 5, patience is truly a great virtue. When we think of the Father or the qualities of the Father in the story of the prodigal son, we focus on his forgiveness, his love, his understanding towards his son. But what we sometimes miss is that he was also a man of great patience. When his son disappeared with his fortune, he didn't chase after him. He didn't get his other son to follow him. He didn't call 911. Instead, he sat back and he waited. How often have you rushed into something instead of stopping for a moment and taking a deep breath and exercising patience? Are you a patient person? Now, I've always found sometimes that when we struggle in life with patience, life has a great way of teaching us that lesson itself. Great example, and I shared this on my FaceTime chat on Wednesday, but one day last week I was barreling down Ferndale Drive, which is a major road here in Barrie, somewhat in a rush because I'm the first to admit that patience is a growing edge for me. And all of a sudden, 2 cars ahead of me stopped, and then the car ahead of me stopped, and I jammed on my brakes and I stopped. The person behind me stopped, and then all the cars in the other direction stopped as well, and there we all were, maybe 20 cars, all stopped. Couldn't figure out why. There was no traffic lights, there was no accident, there was no police on scene. And then I saw it. It was a giant turtle walking from one side of the road to the other. And it had stopped traffic both ways. Nobody wanted to scare it, nobody wanted to run over it. And so there, in our mad rush through the day, we just stopped and watched this beautiful creature cross the road. Someone once said that your life is decided in that moment between action and reaction. That tiny pause between when something happens to you or someone says something to you and before you react. Your life can be won or lost in that tiny pause. Be patient. Instead of reacting, breathe, consider, think, and wait. Patience has its own rewards, and if you don't believe it, watch a turtle cross a street. Number 6, despite the adage that you can't go home again, sometimes you can. Sometimes you need to. The son lost it all and he had nowhere to turn. Penniless, his pride in ruins, lost, alone, he set his sights on the one place he'd always been welcomed, and that was his home. Sometimes home is a place, sometimes it's a person, sometimes it's something different altogether. It is that place or person with whom you know you will find a welcoming hug and an invitation to come in. On Tuesday, again, when we had our grads here, I told them the story that I usually tell every year to our confirmation class. You know, my last year of high school and my first year of university, I stopped going to church completely. There was a good 2-3 years I didn't go to church at all. But then life got a little challenging, and I returned to church, not really expecting much. But what I found when I walked back in those doors was a sense of home, and it changed a lot in my life. And I said to the grads, I'll say to anybody out there, you may get away from church for a time, for a bit, and that's okay. But just remember, the church is always here. The doors are always open, and I want you to know you can always come home. Whatever that word means to you, wherever that place is, whomever that place is, never be afraid to come home when you need to. Number 7, your character is defined by how you treat the least among you. As the great poem said, laugh and the world laughs with you, weep and you weep alone. And that is sad, but it tends to be true. Everyone loves a happy person. Everyone loves a successful person. Everyone wants to be around someone who is popular and doing well in life. Why? Because it's easy. It's easy to ride on the coattails of popularity and success. But friends, I hate to tell you, as good as that sounds, that's not the Christian way. In fact, it's the very opposite of the Christian way. We follow a man who didn't connect by going up, but by going down. We follow the man who waded into leper colonies, who forgave the unforgivable, who welcomed children when everyone else ignored them, who comforted those who broke the law, who helped the sick while everyone else crossed to the other side, who boldly proclaimed, "Blessed are the meek." The Father forgave the prodigal son in his deepest, darkest moment and showed a depth of character that defines in an instant what it means to be a follower of the one who is the master of the second chance. The prodigal son shows us what it means to be a person of character. And true character is found in your measure to extend the best of yourself to the least among you. Think about this. The powerful and the successful don't really need one more admirer, but the marginalized and the forgotten will always need one more advocate. Align yourself with those who struggle and suffer, those who've wandered, those who are lost. Encourage the downhearted and welcome the stranger. Stand in solidarity with those who don't have a voice and expand your circle to those who can't find their place. For what you do to the least of my people, said Jesus, you do for me. Number 8, don't just love the people in your life. Love them enthusiastically. My favorite line in that story says that when his father saw his son coming down the lane, coming home after being away for so long, he rushed to him and he embraced him. He didn't wait at the door. He didn't wait for his son to apologize. He didn't wait for an explanation. My son has returned, he said, and he rushed to him and he embraced him. You know, I never considered myself a particularly demonstrative person, but boy, these past 3 months, have I ever missed hugs. And I know I'm not alone in thinking that. There are going to be a lot of hugs in this place when we finally get together again. We need them. We need people to be enthusiastic about us, enthusiastic about love. You can never say to somebody too many times how you feel about them. Have you ever heard a child say, oh, I wish my mom and dad would stop telling me how much they care about me? And if they do say it, they don't mean it. As much as we teach people that they need to feel good about themselves from within, we also need to affirm our place in the world and our place in life by being reminded that we are loved and being reminded enthusiastically. Don't just love the people in your life. Love them with enthusiasm. Number 9, life is not fair. but please go to the party anyway. The fly in the ointment of this wonderful story of the prodigal son is, of course, the other son. The one who, while his brother was gallivanting around losing everything, stayed home, stayed by his father's side, kept working, kept doing what he was supposed to do. And in the end, when his dad throws a party for his brother, he refuses to go. Why? Because, as he said, it's not fair. It's not fair. You know, when we are kids, we are taught by our parents the importance of fairness. If you get a cookie, your brother gets a cookie. If your sister has 10 gifts under the tree, you have 10 gifts under the tree. And so on and so on. And we learn that life should be fair. At some point, this is a lesson we have to unlearn. Because we have to realize at some point that life doesn't unfold the way that we wish it would. The scales of justice don't always balance. We don't always get what should be coming to us. We all appreciate fairness, and that's why so many of us can relate to the frustration of that other brother. We get it. We understand where he's coming from. But my point is always this. Jesus didn't tell this story to be a story about justice and fairness. He told it as a story of radical, generous grace and forgiveness and love. And I feel very badly for that brother because he was so worried about fairness, he missed out on the party of grace. At some point, we just have to be at peace with the idea that things won't always be fair. Because if we don't, we will get bitter and angry and resentful. But even more than that, we could miss out on some very special and precious experiences in life. Life is not always fair, but please go to the party anyway. I think Mother Teresa captured this better than anyone I know about dealing with life when it's not always fair. She wrote these very famous words. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genuine enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, some will be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you do today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it's between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. And finally, we're at the end. The 10th point, the 10th life lesson from the story of the prodigal son. And it's a statement of faith. It's a statement of faith that I believe with the core of my being. And it is this. Grace is the heartbeat of God in the world today. The story of the prodigal son comes down to this. This young man messed up. He hurt people because he messed up. He fractured trust because he messed up. And quite frankly, he deserved every consequence and punishment that the father and his brother could throw at him. To say nothing of the countless people that he may have hurt or cheated while he burned his way through his fortune. But what did he get instead? The arms of his father around him, a party in his honor, and complete love and forgiveness. He returned home, and he fell straight into the arms of grace. That's why, to me, this is the most powerful story in the Bible. The fact that we are inspired by this story to perhaps exercise this same kind of forgiveness in our lives is actually only a sidebar to the story. Because Jesus didn't really tell this story to teach us about each other. He told the story in response to a question. What is God like? The father in the story is God. And the prodigal son is every one of us. We wander, we make mistakes, we lose our way, we drop the ball, we hurt others, others hurt us, and some of us may even find ourselves slopping with the pigs for a bit. And we might be tempted to say to ourselves, when that day comes and I have to walk that long heavenly road to that door to whatever's on the other side, I wonder what kind of reception I'm going to receive based on the choices I've made in my life. And Jesus is telling us that when that moment comes, despite where you have been, what you've done, despite your mistakes, your regrets, all you will find on the other side of that threshold are the arms of a love and grace so complete, so deep, so welcoming, that everything will fall away. Every scar will heal, every regret will vanish, and you will come to know a peace like one you've never imagined. Jesus is telling us, do not fear coming home, for what you will find there is nothing but complete and pure love. In the meantime, we have to negotiate our way through this world that is not always fair, as we've all found out these past 3 months. A world that can test us and challenge us, sometimes break our hearts, and even bend our willpower. But as always, we do get to choose how we journey through it. Friends, please don't be the other brother, always standing off on the edge of life, hurt, bitter, regretful, angry because life is not fair or it hasn't turned out the way you wanted it to turn out. But I encourage you to see it another way. Choose grace. Be forgiving when you can. Let go when you are able. Be gentle with yourself and others. Be enthusiastic about the people in your life. Be patient and understanding. Be the heartbeat of God, the heartbeat of grace, the heartbeat of justice, the heartbeat of goodness, beating gently but persistently to the rhythm of peace. And whether the party is in your honor or not, always show up, for you will never regret celebrating a second chance. To the COVID class of 2020, thanks for listening. The world awaits. Now go and embrace your future. Amen. I'd like to share a closing prayer, and at the end I'll say the Lord's Prayer, and I hope you'll say it along with me. Let us pray. God, we give you thanks for the time that we spend together, for the music that's inspired us, for the message that has challenged us, and for the prayers that have calmed us. May we take away from what we heard today, the story of the prodigal son, a reminder again of the power of love, the power of grace, and the power of forgiveness in our lives. Maybe we heard that story and we could relate to the father worried about someone in his or her life. Maybe we could relate to the prodigal. Maybe we have strayed, or maybe we have felt far away from our source of love. Maybe we felt like the brother. We've felt on the sidelines. We've felt bitter or upset. We know this story evokes so many feelings in us. But may we take away from it its central message that you are the source of love in our lives. And therefore, we can release through prayer, through music, through talking, all the many things that we feel in our hearts. So we're going to take a moment of quiet prayer now to think about the story, to think about the people in our lives, and take a moment to offer the prayers that we are considering today. And God, hear our prayers. And hear us now as we continue in prayer, as we share together the words of the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And again, to all the dads, grandfathers, father figures out there, we hope you have a great day, and happy first day of summer as well. To end our service, I'd like to share a blessing. And again, for those of you who are at Northwest, this is the blessing that we have on the back wall of our church. And I'd like to share these inspiring words with you as we go into another week. Today, may there be peace within. May you trust God that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith. May you use those gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. May you be content knowing that you are a child of God. Let this presence settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, dance, praise, and love. It is there for each and every one of you. Amen. Thank you, everyone. Have a great week, and we'll see you here next Sunday.